Okay, everybody, let's get started. This is the iPhone class, and we have some exciting stuff today. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 examples, because remember I told you we're going to start looking at source code now, and we're going to start looking at Objective-C projects and stuff. I'm going to try to make this a little bit bigger. And no more, well, I'm still going to throw some theory at you, but no more, boring PowerPoint slides. So instead what we're going to do, and my emulator is working for iPhone. Don't have as many problems as I do with the Android emulator. So the purpose of today's meeting is to go over those, as many as I can get through within a reasonable amount of time, examples, and explain the source code and how the projects are working so that you can do this yourself. Because you will have to put together programming assignments, 5 of them for this course, and that are going to be due on May 1st. So this first project that we're going to do is a step up from Hello World. I'm going to start low because we really haven't covered too much hands-on stuff yet. So if you're just starting out, this is actually a good spot to catch the lectures because I'm starting with code from the beginning and we're working forward. And then next week I'll have built on this week's stuff and then so forth. But I have to start somewhere. So we're going to define a web-based application template. So when you load up, I made this bigger so I could read it, and what I'll do is I'll put these text files underneath the videos so you can find them and do this project yourself at home. When you load up Xcode and you select to create a new project, what we're looking at here is defining a web-based, a view-based. Thinking Android already, and then which is the option that's highlighted right now. Most of the things that we're going to be doing in the first couple of examples are going to be using one interface, and it's going to be called a view-based application. And so when you select the view-based application on the bottom, you can select iPad or iPhone. I left it on the default of iPhone. It just gives a more universal kind of look and feel. And so step number 1, what I'm going to do is kind of run through these examples and show you how to build them and show you where to put the code. And the code is actually given to you, but I'm going to explain the code functionality. So it's going to be used, this particular application is going to be used to model the view and the controller objects and how they work together on the iPhone, which is the purpose of this from a teaching perspective. So I've talked about in previous weeks the model view controller. We hopefully have maybe some good understanding of this design pattern in terms of object orientation and how it works. So we're going to look at the pieces of that and how it works. So the first step, in step number 1, I know it's kind of small in the background, but in essence I'm trying to make this viewable. Here we go. Create a view-based application using a template. Name, using a template. It's actually just by default you're using a template when you're doing this. So, and name the project simple example. And then the code automatically creates a directory. In fact, if we do this, let me just open up simple example, because rather than having you see me write typos and stuff like that, I decided I'll just make this easier, and I put them together because it also tests to make sure that the code samples work and there aren't any typos in the examples. So simple example opens up a window. It looks like that, as we've seen from Hello World. Actually, it doesn't look exactly like that because that screen's probably down and the focus is probably up here. It probably looks more like that. And not a bad idea when you first create the projects, just to reiterate the point, is to click on the build and run automatically. I've built this in debug mode. You may also see things up there, and I'm doing it on a 4.0 simulator. You might also see different versions up here. It doesn't really matter. The code will work and everything. It's compatible. It's just basic stuff. So what we're going to do next is add the functionality to the controller and to the view. So Xcode automatically creates the directory. It puts it in the home directory, actually. So you can explore the directory structure and check it out. And you can actually look at the contents of the directory. If I look at the contents of the directory, I'm going to find it in my home directory, which is where I set my path on my install. And you can see I have a bunch of stuff in here, but one of these items says simple example, I believe. Here it is right here, simple example. If I open it up, I see all of the files that are associated with it. So when you send me stuff, what you do is you go over here, you click on simple example, and you say compress simple example. And simple example is probably over here somewhere, out of view. The file is out here somewhere. Oh, nope, the file's down here. Here's that compressed file. That's what you're uploading to the LMS, by the way. So when you're doing this, this is what you're turning in, because I know I'm getting 100 questions already. What are we turning in? I don't need to see screenshots. I don't need to see anything. Just do what I just did a few seconds ago. Right mouse click, compress. You're doing this on a Mac because you have a MacBook, because you're doing iPhone development. It doesn't work on any other platforms, so rest assured I can show you on this computer, and you're going to be able to follow that instruction, hopefully. So you're uploading that zip file that contains all the project folders, all the project information, I should say. In here, this is actually in the same format as it is out here, except for it's not quite as visible. So here we have classes, other sources. Well, there's nothing much in there. Resources. In here we have classes. Those are our classes. In our build directory, we have the debug directory. We don't have any resources actually. Things in here. Debug information. It's just temporary file. There's a bunch of files in here, which is why you just can't go in here and give me the classes and expect that I'm going to be able to run your project. I need all of the other information as well. But this is pretty boring. It doesn't really have very much in it. This particular one doesn't really even use any resources. In fact, if I close this and go out here and I look at the resources, I have that one interface file here, main window, that XIB. As we know, that's the interface window. But it's going to give us our interface builder tools and stuff that we're going to work with. And then we have a simple example ViewController, which isn't really doing anything. It's just empty. So now what we're going to do is, as we're following through on this step-by-step tutorial, we've looked at the directory. Looks great. Not all of them do ever have to look at it. Expand the classes and notice the interface builder created for you automatically simple example controller. And I don't know why the 4s are in blue here. This is text Wrangler, and it tries to color code source code, but it doesn't understand Objective-C. So, all right, and it thinks this is source code. So the simple controller class is already created for you. So expand the resources and notice that the template generated a simple NIB, a simple controller XIB, and the simple controller. So this is if we expand the resource file. It didn't actually create the NIB for us. Well, we're not going to need it anyway for this project. And I didn't use a template for this. I just created a blank project. So, and the example is based on an earlier API. So I don't believe we're going to see that NIB file. We don't really need it anyway, actually. It's probably going to be out here anyway. So, long story short, we're going to be working with the XIB files, and we're going to be working with the .h's and the .m's that we're going to find in the classes. Alright, so what are we going to do next? We've noticed all those controllers out there and stuff. So we're going to open up the simple controller.h, and we know that's the implementation. Excuse me, that's the specification for the implementation. It's the .h. It's going to be very similar to what it is in C++. We're going to add a UIlabel and one method for changing the label's value. So we're going to make the label an IB outlet that we talked about with all those lecture slides last week when I talked about the interface builder and I talked about all of the GUI items. And we're going to add a method called IB action. And then we're going to make the following change in the simple example controller.h file. This is the code here, so you don't have to stress on it. You don't actually have to add this manually. All you do is cut and paste and put this in here. So the UI kit is what we looked at in terms of what the user interface builder does for us. And we have, and I'll show you the code here actually, this is going to be in simple example ViewController. So in simple example ViewController, I have cut and pasted and I've put the source code in here that was in that text file that I showed you in terms of the example. And this example was created by this guy here. It's copyrighted, so all of the information is left intact. So I'm giving credit where credit is due. I did not. This is actually these are really good examples. Actually, they're all coming from the same source. But I'm using this as an illustrative purposes to show you where stuff goes. Well, what does a controller do? It's controlling the button press. It's creating the IB outlet that we're going to use when the user presses a button. It's going to do something. So this is why we're putting it in the controller object. So we have the interface here, which is just like saying in C++, just like saying class, and inherit from UI ViewController, which is what this is doing. And then we're creating an object, an IB outlet, and it's called a UIlabel. And then here's the label that we're going to actually refer to it as in the GUI component in the interface builder. And then we have a property that we're going to set in the app property, and we've gone through the app interface. I've gone through the app properties and all that stuff in the PowerPoints, but this is how it actually kind of comes together in terms of the implementation. So this is the UIlabel, and on the IB action we're going to call the change label value, and we're going to send it the value. Excuse me, it's going to, on the button click, we're going to get the ID of the object, and we're going to use that to say, because you know we can have many different labels out there. We can have many different objects out there, so we're setting the change label value from the ID that's being selected, from the object that's being selected from the GUI. And it's the .h file, so it's just giving us essentially our specification. We're going to use the .m file as equivalent to a .c++ file for C++ people. Excuse me, yeah, here it is, a .m file. It's equivalent to the .c++ file. It happened here, format not a string. And no formal argument, it doesn't really matter. And here's the .m implementation of the .h file. And in terms of what we're looking at here, we have that we're cutting and pasting and taking from the text file that's out here. So we've cut and pasted this part, and we've put it in the .h file. And then step number 5, we're opening up the, we're going to do the XIB file first, but further down the road, step number 6, I skipped step number 5 for a second. Step number 6, we're opening up that .m file that correlates with this, and we have to implement the action button, essentially. Or, you know, we have to implement the, excuse me, the UIlabel activity. And the action button, I believe there's a button on there too. I'm not quite sure, actually. I think it's just a label. So we're taking IB action change label, but it's a label. When the value of the label gets changed, we're going to perform this action. And what are we going to do? Well, we're going to take it, actually it's probably easier to look at the code here. This is all that you're taking and putting into the stock .m file that already exists. You just cut this out, stick it into this file essentially. And we've got some other stuff commented out. Don't worry about that. It's a makeshift example. So take this out, cut it out, stick it into the body of the .m. What this is doing is when the label gets changed, we're going to set the label to welcome to the real world. On the UI button, we're going to create the button that is going to be the sender. And then we're going to send the message as the current title of the button. So, and then in step number 5 that I kind of skipped before, we're going to move this down so you can actually see it in the view of the screen. Alright. A little word wrapping going on here. There we go. I took the word wrapping off so it would fit in the view of the screen. So in the XIB file, which is going to be our interface builder, we have to add the GUI components that we're controlling through the controller. So the controller class is looking at the GUI components by their IDs. And each one of them has an ID, and I'll show you that in a few minutes. And we're perfecting it by adding the behavior in the .m file to go along with the action that is occurring and the button options. And we're connecting the functionality from the class, and we're connecting it to the GUI button. So we're going to select the library from the Tools menu and drag a label onto the from the library, place it onto the window, double-click on it, change the name to Hello iPhone. Then bring a round rectangular, this is just kind of very similar to a Hello World, from the library, and place it on the label. Double-click on that, put a click me on it, and then any touches up, you know, excuse me, any of the other items you want to put on there, you can go ahead and do that. And then now, with a single click on the round rectangle, you're going to bring over the connector item and drag from the touch up inside of the file owner's icon and select the change label action, which is that action that we put in the control object. So this is the method that we created in the controller that we're going to add to the item that's going to be on the GUI that's going to connect the behavior that's implemented in the .m file. Let's go take a look at that, because I'm sure you guys all got that right. So let me close this for a second. How do we bring up the interface builder? We just take a simple example ViewController XIB, and we have main. Just make sure I get the right one. Simple example ViewController.h. Oops. We're supposed to be editing simple example viewer controller.xib. So the controller for the simple example. So this is the XIB file. If we double click on it, it brings it up in a, and I've already populated it. It brings it up, and now we see on the top here, we see interface builder instead of Xcode up here. If we click on here, we see Xcode again. Interface builder is still there. You just get to it back down here. We click on interface builder icon, and it'll bring back up the interface builder. Now that usually causes a bit of confusion the first couple of times you do it. Also, what ends up happening is you can close these boxes. Close the boxes, it looks like interface builder went away, but it didn't. Also, the other thing, a bit of confusion, is you can make changes in here, not save them, not close the interface builder, go back to Xcode and still continue and run your program. And you don't get the changes. No. In fact, Xcode, if it's smart enough, it will detect that you've changed it. Usually it doesn't. And then you'll get the old GUI with the new implementation. So best to, when you're done with the interface builder as a kind of a common practice, best to close it, save your current changes. And that way you have the current version of the interface that's working with the current version of the class file that you're working with. Okay, so in here, this is the GUI window that's talking about. If you go Tools and go Library, this is the library that it was referring to in terms of the instructions. If we go rounded rectangle and we drag it over here, I just added a rectangular button. I can put anything I want on here. It's not going to change the functionality of my project, because what's going to change the functionality, I'm not going to put here, you know, if I double click on this button, I'm going to say, you know, useless button, doesn't do anything. I'm not going to have any behavior associated with it. Because if you think about this button here, if I right mouse click on this button, I can see that the touch up inside is connected to the file owner's change label value. How did I get that? Well, I went into the file owner and close this screen. And this is the part I've shown you in the lecture, but I really haven't shown you very much. If I close this library here, get it out of the way. This little box here gives me, like, it's like a file menu. It gives me all of the information that's in my project. And these are guys that are in my project. Here's my view. This is my view. So if I close this view and I double click on here, it brings it back up. This here is called my file owner object. It's my ViewController. It's that object that I created that was a combination of the .h file and the .m file that work together to get compiled into the object. I could create other objects in there too if I wanted to. How did I get this? Click me. There's a couple of different ways of doing it. If I remove this right here, just click on this. Oops, it won't let me remove it. Well, I can do it again. Nope, I can't do it again. Let's see. It's already set. Let's go this way. Nope. Well, I guess it's a good thing for me not to mess it up. But nope, not gonna work. It's already on there. What you're doing to connect it is you're going into the view for the view connections for the file owner, and you're dragging and dropping references to the IB outlet to the button. And the way that you're doing that, actually let's do it this way, is, I'm like, why is this? Because it's already assigned. Here we go. Unassign it. There we go. So we can go like this with it. Whoops. Now it's gone. Reference object. Hold on one second. The label. The value. Okay, here it is. This is an easier way of doing it. Now I've changed the click me. Here, let me just back up a little bit. I switched the view so I could see all of the information that was associated with the object. And here I have the outlets, and then I have the received actions which is basically the button listener event that's going to occur when I receive an action, which is that this is the change value label. And I removed the linkage so that I could show you how the linkage is created. The linkage, and this is the trickiest part actually, we have different tabs here in the window. When you create the linkage, it's going to look a little different. It's going to look like how it just looked a few minutes ago. And you can only connect it once. You can't take this change label value and connect it to all of the items on the screen. Not going to work. So instead what we're going to do is I'm going to change it from click me to useless button. And I'm going to make the useless button do the click me activity instead. So the way I do that is I take this and I click on the label. I come over here and I bring it over and it says rounded rectangle button, useless button. When I let go, it's going to have me pick which activity when I click on this. I think, what was it, an up? Click up inside, I think, is what I want on that. If not, that's what I'm going to pick. And then now I've created the linkage. If I don't see this here, it probably means I didn't save the changes that I made to the .h file and the .m file, and that method, this IB outlet, and this IB outlet is this IB outlet over here, actually. Wrong file. It's the controller. Here we go. It's the. This is the behavior here. The IB action is for the IB outlet. The IB outlet is the label. The label is going to change. The action on it, and we're calling the action the change label value. That's what's appearing. That's what's appearing over here in this window here. Change label value. The implementation for that change label value is what's over here in the .m file. Here it is. And what's going to happen? What's going to say that label that right now says. Go back to the interface builder. That label I think says "Hello World" or something. I'm not sure what that label says. Let's see. Hello. There you go. This label here says "Hello iPhone" is going to say something else because the action that's associated with this button, and now it's going to be this one down here. So I'll put this one up here, and I'll put this guy down here because we don't need him. We know which one to press. It's going to say "Hello to the real world" now instead of "Hello iPhone," because we're going to set the text to this tag of "Welcome to the real world," and then it's going to send it to the button. You know, okay, we've sent it, and then we're going to log. If we're doing the log, we're essentially going to create a log that says, you know, the current title. Essentially, we're not really going to do very much with it. We're just basically creating the button activity to change this label to something else. So that's all the functionality that's associated with connecting an action, creating an outlet, creating an action for the outlet, connecting the action to the GUI item, saving it, which is what we're going to do right now. And then when we run it, well, let's not save anything. Ooh, I didn't save it. Well, oh no, here we go. Let's save it. Do you want to save changes to? Yes, I do want to save changes. I probably just broke it, but let's see, because I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. I have that other useless button on there, so we'll see what happens with that. Now, if I run it, oops, well, good sign. It's kind of big. Let's see if it works. Okay, I've just broken it. Oh, there it goes. Yep. So now if I click useless button, it says welcome to the real world. If I click me, it's not going to do anything. Because I remember I moved it and I saved it, remembered to save it. So unfortunately, it's not very sophisticated because now that it's switched, when I click the buttons, it's already there. I'm not going to see any effect. I guess I could have it, you know, on every other click. You know, if it's this, make it that. If it's this, make it that. Kind of switch it back and forth. But you can kind of see now how the activity of the method that creates the IB outlet and the IB action work. So that is actually what I was explaining to you a couple weeks ago, or even as fast as last week, when I was going over the particulars in terms of the GUI components and how to connect them. But until you actually see it kind of working, it's really hard to put that into focus, I think, sometimes. So after you connect that, it now says welcome to the real world. Now you compile it and run it. That's pretty much the end of that first example. Are there any questions? I'm going to save this because I Oops. I'm going to save it because I moved the text over a little bit. So it fits all on one page correctly. Questions on example number 1. For those of you who walked in late, you're probably going, what in the world is she doing today? And going over several different examples so that you can kind of see all the pieces come together. Alright. I'm going to close the simulator because the simulator doesn't actually close automatically when you close the project. In fact, I can close all the way out of this Xcode here. Oh, no, it's going to tell me. Project simulator, test target, stop it, yes. The simulator's still open. Even though I've exited completely out of Xcode. Wow. So I'm going to close the simulator. I didn't probably have to exit out of Xcode. No, Xcode is still running. I just closed the project is what I did. So, project number 2 of the examples for today. So that was number 1. And so what I'm going to do on this video is just include a link to all of these files I have right here, so that you can do this at home. And I'm showing you how to do it so you can take this home and do it, because until you do it, I can't teach you how to program. You have to actually do it yourself in order to figure it out, which is how it works. So, I mean, I can show you PowerPoints, I can show you examples, but I can't get you to write code on yourself, by yourself. And this is minimal writing. This is just cutting and pasting. And it's really easy stuff, so you can probably understand that, maybe. Alright, so this one says display a message. It's a little bit more sophisticated. It's a step up from the first one. Not too bad. Not that high of a step. Displays a message, so it's very easy to create. So you just type in your first name and your last name. In fact, this one is done already for you in one of the examples I gave you. This is a repeat of it. So I'm going to fly through at the speed of light, because some of you who have been watching the videos have already seen this. It's a sophisticated hello world, is what this is. But let me give you an opportunity to see it live. And it is TextView. No. I probably should have labeled it. This one is display a message. I think it's going to be Hello World. Let's just see. So, because it's from my Hello World example, so I'm pretty sure that it's going to be Hello World. So, let's just make sure real quick. I'll just run it and see what it does. Yes, I have the correct one. This one is demoed for you in a video already. After you install the API, you should run this one actually. So I will just show you briefly what this one is doing without going through it because it's already done. And I'm going to call this one. This one is Hello World. That way, when you download it, you know which one it is in terms of which one of the. If you're watching it along with if you're doing along with the video. So it just displays a message. So you create a project, is what we did, and here's the code that's doing it. So you add some code in the header file of in the particular project that we created. We have a view-based application, same as before, same type of application. So we're going to add this one to the Hello ViewController, the same controller that we used last time, the same way that we did it a few minutes ago. We add this code, and what is this code going to do? And this is the interesting part. It's just showing you the connection. Instead of one, now we have multiples. We have buttons, and you can see from the example we have text buttons, and text labels, and we have a button. This button says click. Anonymous has a nice day because we didn't put anything in here. So it's a slightly different upgraded version of the Hello World. So what you're supposed to do is type your name in here. Let's go here, test. Barbara Test has a nice day. So, alright, so we have a first name, we have a last name, and we have an IB message. And this is the IB message, which is the label. And we see we have IB outlet, IB outlet, IB. They're all IB outlets. And if we go into the interface builder, we see that they are connected in the same way as before. I'm going to make this a little smaller so I can actually see what I'm doing. If we go into resources, we see, lo and behold, the same thing we saw in the other example, Hello World ViewController. And here's that screen that we looked at. And if I click on this item here, and I open up the file owner, and I click on this item here, what I'm doing here actually, let me make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 different subsections of this window, and it's the most confusing thing I've ever seen. Because this doesn't really tell me very much. Nor does this. This guy says ruler, or size. And then here's the other confusing part of the whole thing. I've clicked away from this, so now I'm getting nothing. Well, I'm getting nothing here. Well, I get some information, but if I click on an item here, I get information associated with the item. If I click on the item here, I get something associated with that item. So this keeps changing, and so most students go, what in the world is in there? Why does that keep changing like that? And the mystery of the whole thing is it depends on what you're focused on, what it is you've clicked on the GUI, as to what's going to show up in the button identity. This is going to say button identity. Up here it's going to say text field identity. This is a text field, so the label on the top is changing actually. So you can sort of tell what it's looking at. But most students end up changing the wrong parameters for the wrong GUI item. So they're not paying attention to it, and I do it myself, what's not connected. This is the connection. So this has got the button connectors on it. Connections, and the button connectors here have the same thing as we looked at before. This is a touch up inside, and it's connected to this click button. So I just showed you how to do that actually. So let's talk about the labels for a second. The labels have a last name that's connected to it, and this one has a first name reference that's connected to it. And if I get out of here and I just show the information, I can right mouse click and I can see the information about it. And I can see on the bottom the object references. They're clicked, so the IB outlets are connected. I can change other parameters, which I'm not showing you, but you can you can go in and change the label this way, or you can do it this way. If you're going to change the label, put a label on there, change the label here by double clicking, or you can use the information in the identity box or the attribute box to change the portrait, the color, the size. You know, you can make different changes essentially. So this code here is the first name, the last name. We're connecting the items with the buttons, but we're not really going to do anything with the buttons. Instead, what we're going to do when we click the button is take the first name and the last name and put it on a label. And this is the label actually. Oh, there's a label. Hey, there it is, the label. You can see the label. It doesn't have a label on there. It doesn't say anything. It just says this is a label. But that's not really going to matter, because what's going to happen programmatically is when we program starts, it's going to change that. So a lot of people leave label 1 or something on there, like the ID of the label. So when your program's not running and you're looking at it, where's the label? Do we have a label on here? Like a few minutes ago, you probably didn't know that label was there. Or they, because you're going to change it programmatically. A lot of people don't like to do that because, well, what happens if you forget to change it? Then the screen comes up and says, this is a label. But in our case, I could just put this as a label because we're going to change it. So back at the code, and today's all focused about the code anyway. So this is going into the ViewController, and this is the .h file, which is specifying the implementation but not providing the source code for the implementation. So we're saying we have an IB outlet. Here's our 3 IB outlets, 2 text fields and a label. And we have an IB action. The IB action is going to be a click. When we click on it, and in the click we have, well, what kind of click was it? Which is kind of different than the Android. Android is like a touch and a click, and it has all of the different specified action. And then there's an action listener. We don't have an action listener. Instead, we have an IB outlet and an IB controller, IB action. And it automatically is implemented in the interface for us, so we don't have to listen. If we do this, it listens automatically, essentially. So here, the action we're looking for is a click. We have, several different varieties of clicks in this window, but this one's going to be a touch down inside click. We could change it, a touch down, a cancel, any one of the other ones. I think a touch down will also do the same thing as a touch down inside. So you put your finger inside, essentially. A little hand actually looks really cool. So. Alright, so double check the XIB file and open it up in the interface builder. Click on the view icon. Well, I don't think we have a view icon, I'm not sure. And, oops, there we go. What does this one have? Click on the view icon, open up the view window, drag a text field from the library. Oh, it's a text field. And place it on the window. That's this item right here, the label. Then bring up the attribute inspector. Well, we just did that. Enter your first name and a placeholder. Enter your first name as a placeholder. Or if we bring up the inspector, we can put it in here. Here's the inspector. We can put in the first name, enter your first name, enter your last name. It's further down the, actually it's further down the page, but on one of these items. Anyway, you can use the inspector or you can use it from the GUI component. So do it once more for the other item. So you have both of the first name and the last name that look the same. Place a rectangle, a round rectangular item on the screen. We did that. And put click on the label. Did that. And then drag that from the library and place it on the window. Drag a label. That's the label. Then connect the owner to the first text and to the connect the first name and the last name to the IV outlets that are in the inspector window. And this is actually called, when you hit the tools menu, this is the inspector. This is the inspector window, which is what they're calling it. So don't be confused on the terminology. We also have the library. This is the library. Why did I put it in a library? I don't know. You can go classes, which is my preferred mode, or you can go objects, which gives you everything. And you can drag all sorts of objects onto your canvas and change your objects around if you want to. So it allows you to kind of play around with stuff. From a drag and drop perspective, instead of doing it programmatically, you can also do it programmatically as well. So here we're going to drag on a label, call it IBI message, select around, basically connect the label so that the label is connected. And then save your XIB, NIB, it's XIB file, and go back to Xcode. A little typo in here. So in the view-based class, we mentioned a method click, which we looked at. So when you press on the click button, it shows a message, and here is the information here for that. And there's a string that's going to take in first string, last name, then I set a message to nil, and this is the implementation of that. So you might say it looks very C-like. It's Objective-C and C in terms of iteration, in terms of if and else and switches and cases and stuff like that is very similar. So at least you can feel comfortable that you know the syntax, hopefully. So you have the three variables, the first name that's connected to the first name text box, the last name, the message, which is going to be the final result. So if first name length equals 0 and last name length equals 0, that's where we're going to get that anonymous from. We're going to take that string and make it anonymous. Else, if it's larger, then take it, use it. So the message is going to be equal to the NS string allocate, which is our allocate memory, which I've gone over a couple of times already. So if you've missed the memory allocation lecture, go back and watch the video. I've covered that many times already in terms of how we don't, how the garbage collection works and how the memory allocation and the release of that memory actually works. And we see the message release down here. So initialize it with the format, give it this way, send it to first name. This one's going to be for last name. And then the message is going to be have a nice day, first name and last name, which is what we've got going on here. Oops, there we go. So else, you know, if the message is this, if it has a first name but no last name, use the first name. If it has a first name and a last name, use them both. If it has a last name, use the last name, not the first name. Yada yada. Eventually we get down to the else, and the else is going to be the message. The message is going to be have a nice day plus whatever it is we gave them, first name and last name. And then we can see we can set the label, and here's the interesting thing here. We're just setting the label. The label ID is LVL Label. And we've set this in the GUI. So the other thing people like to do is create a bunch of GUI items, and you can use the default label if you want. Or you can change this attribute. This one is LVL message, and it's connected with the label LVL message. So we've identified this as LVL message by connecting through the interface through here, our inspector. We've connected it, so we're telling the GUI that this is LVL label, and this is first name, and this is last name, and this is the click button, which is how we're getting the, this is the missing link between the code and the buttons. That connection does everything for you all in once. Gives you the names, gives you, identifies each one of the components. Otherwise we could have as we saw in the last example when I created an extra button. We can have many buttons on there. I can just change the buttons around. Put a different action on each one of the buttons by dragging it to a different location. So, okay, so after we've done the first name, the last name, we're going to release the memory. This is that memory release. There's our garbage collection. And then we have the text field should return, meaning we're going to get focus back, which means we can type in the field again. So after we've taken it, so we're going to set that to yes. So we can resign first responder, set the text field back. So the text field, actually the text goes away and it comes back to being reset to nothing. And now compile and run your program in the simulator and you see the activity. I'm going to save this one for a second because I fixed some typos in there as I was reading through it. And if we run it, oops, it's still running. Close it. Oops. If we run it and we type in VH click, oh, it didn't do that, huh? But it reset the, yeah, there we go, yeah, it does reset it. When we click in the button, it resets it so that we can, on focus, it resets it so that we can type in other stuff and then click it so we can see that. Huh, it's on focus reset. So. Questions about example number 2? I know we're getting to more exciting stuff coming up next. So those are the boring ones. Those are the beginning. Those are the baby steps for those people who haven't looked at any of the other stuff yet. So don't save. You don't have to close Xcode, but I think I will close this. Make things easier. TextView. All right. So what if we want to open up a file and read it and write to it, or what if we just want to put things in a text view? So this one's a simple text view. And let me open up the right project here. I believe it's called TextView. If I remember correctly, TextView application. So this is a TextView application. So we can edit, write, this is a, I'm done. Press done. And no replacement found. Yes, I know. There's not. Okay, that was really bad text. There was absolutely no spell checking possible for that text. But the keyboard comes automatically up. The only thing the done button is doing is removing the keyboard. It's built-in functionality for the text view. So how do we obtain a text view? Well, you'd think that would be complicated, right? A little text editor. Not so much. All you do is create the object, assign it a file name from a location, open it up. Open it up for read, write, open it up for whatever it is you want to open it up for. So let me go through the instructions real quick so you can kind of sort of see what's going on here. Simple text view example. So you will learn how to use a text view. And we do everything with the coding, easily edit, delete, add contents into the text view. So now you're creating a view-based application, same as before. All these are the same type of application. Using the template, well, you just create a type as a view base and it automatically opens it for you. Give it the name TextView application. Xcode automatically creates a directory, yada yada. There's a little repeat because these are like self-standing alone. So if you didn't do any of the other ones, it's not going to assume that you have this information yet. So I'm going to kind of skip through some of this. Expand it out. Take a look at the files. This is what I got. Okay, good, very good. Now we're going to make a change. This one we're going to change now. We're going to expand the resources and notice that the template generated a simple example. Oops, wrong one. Well, okay, wrong text. Oh, this is the text view. Well, okay, it's supposed to be called TextView ViewController, but we're not going to edit it anyway. So there's a typo in here, actually. We'll just go like this. Let me fix my typo real quick. There we go. So now we have an XIB file that matches it. And we have a controller that matches it. Nice, not bad. So now we're going to make a change. This is where we're going to change the AppDelegate. So it's kind of a different file that's in there, and this is a default way of creating the application because it's not really a controlled app. We have no control going on. There's no controller, so we're going to use the delegate for this. So we have a void application did finish launching. Did it finish launching? If it did, then open the file is what's going to happen. So the navigation controller, we're going to create a new navigation controller that's going to add the sub view to the view because there is no controller on the outside of it. So, and then we are going to, in fact, we'll take a look at this real quick here. Oops, where is Xcode? Here it is. There it goes. This is what we're talking about here. So we're using this set instead of this set. In the two previous examples we have used these because we're really implementing controller behavior. So anything having to do with creating IB outlets and IB actions goes in the controller behavior. And then things having to do with the application itself and what's going on in the main window go in the AppDelegate window. So in the AppDelegate window we've added in this here, which is the window, and the window is going to have an IB outlet for the window by default. This is given for you actually by default. And so we're adding a controller, and then we will create a variable for the text view, and then after creating and declaring the variable for the text view, we'll write a property for it so that we can declare the object for the UI text view so that when it's called we can connect it. And that will be in the controller. So we will edit the controller as well. And then here's the information for it right here, where the UI text view is a UI text view. So if we bring up the interface builder, we see we now have a text view object in here. Let me close this window here. Multi-tab. I'm editing the file as well as. If I click on the resources and go into the text view application, let's see. Oops, hold on a second. Main window application, here we go. There is no controller for it because it's all controlled by the text view. The text view was dragged from the library and it was put in here. This is the text view that we're looking at right now, this application. So we dragged it, put it into the window, and that's basically the entire application. In fact, we have some control. Not very much control for it. We don't have any buttons. We don't have anything to click on it. We just open it up. We start typing on the screen. So that's our. This is the view here that we're going to be calling the text view. Oops, inspector. The window, which is this GUI item out here, is connected to the text view application. So the window is, our application is the text view. So this connection here between this referenced object window with text view application is going to give us our complete application. What are you guys doing? Filling out attendance roster over there? There better not be more names than what's sitting here. I believe you all the time when you say you were here, yes. If your name's not on the roster, but the name's on the roster, but I wasn't here. Oh, how does that work? Let's look at the functionality of the text view. So we'll get on to something a little bit more positive in terms of criticism. Okay, so this is going in our .h file, in our .m file, in our controller file. And our controller file is just saying, control the window with this text view. The text view is the only thing in this window. Okay, so which is essentially why we're setting this property to the UI text view to text view, which is going to be our text view. So we can connect the text view to the window. We have, there's the window, there's our text view. So we've identified it. In the text view, in the implementation in the .h file, this is the application for the view controller. We're going to set the text view, we're going to set some properties on it, allocate the memory for it, set the frame to auto-release the memory when we're done using it. We're going to set the background color, we're going to set the font, we're going to set the delegate itself, make it this. We're going to set the background color. Oops, that's background. Oh, that was the text color. Background color. These are a bunch of properties that you can set. Go online, look them up. You can see all the different properties that you can set for a text view. These are just some of them. And then here's the text that shows up in here. So we can say, this is the sample text. It's going to show up in the text view. I don't believe we have any controls on here, so we're not going to be saving this to anything. It just goes away when we're done with it. But we could save it to a file. That would be another functionality we could add to it. Maybe a save on the bottom of the screen or something. Is it scrollable? Yes, we're going to add some scroll bars to it, stuff like that. Auto resize mask, make it word wrap, make the text size correctly for the window. Auto make it a submenu for the identify itself as TextView for the subview, inside of the view. And then we have all of the different states that the view could possibly be in. As an example, did it load? Did it unload? Did it appear? So we can do cleanup and things that are associated with the TextView window, which is kind of like, if you think about the concept, it's sort of like managing the state of a process. Is it running? Is it not running? Is it suspended? What happened with this? So we can check and create view. Did it load? Did it load? Yes. Then initialize the text view and set the text view to the text that we have created in that string above, which is this text view title. Set the title of the text view. Did it unload? If it unloaded, then super view did unload. Call the super object it created from text view to do any kind of cleanup. And text view, self text view is equal to nil. Make that pointer for that window to go away to nothing now. The view will appear. We can animate the view. We're not really doing very much to it. Disappear, make it upon a disappear, animate the disappear. So you can sort of make the text view go to the side, or you can have some special effects associated with it. This isn't really doing anything, but it's showing you essentially a layout of all of the different activity that could exist for the particular text view. And this is methods that you have to implement by default for the particular object, because you're making an instance of the object of TextView, and so it has to contain all of the different components that are associated with. And this given to you, the template is given to you automatically when you create the text view. When you add the text view over. All right, long story short, if I go back to the almost done with this example. This is it. This is the text file. This is all the stuff you're cutting and pasting and you're putting into the .h or the .m file. This is the .m information actually. The implementation of the methods for the TextView application. So this is the stuff that's going into, this is the implementation. Okay, we're putting this in the .h file, okay. And then we have the implementation that we're going to put into the .m file. I believe I probably should have changed that. That should go into the .m, but it doesn't really matter which one it goes into because both of those files work together when they get compiled. The object gets created, and to follow the standard correctly, that should have gone in. The implementation goes into the .m. The specification goes into the .h. But this is actually done a little backwards in this example. I'll fix that. And the other thing at the end would be a save action if we had a save action. This particular implementation is incomplete. It's not showing you any buttons. And it's purposely left like this so that you can mess around with it. So you can take and try to implement some of the behavior with creating the GUI item and then attaching the IB outlet or the IB action to the particular GUI item that appears. So it's kind of a, I don't know, interesting yet different implementation. So we'll move on to the next one unless we have any questions on the text view. And again, it's kind of partially implemented. There's more code than you need actually. So you could strip it out if you wanted to. Create a web page. This one's a bit more interesting because it's doing something that you guys are gonna get all excited about. And look, there's no code. It's actually kind of easy. There's no source code to look at. There's no buttons to connect. In fact, there's no states to change. And if you hadn't noticed, most of the code that was implemented in the M file that was not in the GUI was functionality that needed to be implemented for the text view if it were actually functional, which means an open, a close, a save, like what happens when you close the file. But we didn't have the ability to close the file, so we don't have to worry about the close. We did have functionality implemented for the opening, obviously. But what if we saved it, So I/O would be a different lecture completely. But the text view itself is not a bad idea because what you can do is go out to the internet, find a file, and open it up. And if it's a text file, put it in a text view. If it's not, put it in an image view. If not, put it in a video or something like that. So this particular example is kind of interesting, and you guys will like this one. It's called Create a Web Page. Create a web page. Well, it's actually quite simple. I put it under a web directory. I think I labeled it web. I did. So the interface to the application is nothing more than a window with a web view in it. So it displays an application showing how to display a web page on the iPhone. Could you guys keep it down because I don't want to yell over you? Hello? You can't even hear me. You're talking so loud. Thank you. I just don't want to yell over people. Okay, so we're going to create an application. We're going to put a web page in an application. This is done a lot, actually. So it's very easy to do. And the Android is actually very easy to do on the iPhone as well. So create a new project. Again, we're going to create a view-based application. And everything so far that we've been creating has been a view-based application. So we're going to add in the ViewController, the header file here. We're going to put in this here to say that it's going to be a web. We're going to create a web display object. It's going to be of type UILabel, because we're going to drag one from the library and we're going to stick it on a canvas. And the IB outlet is identified as web display. So in the inspector window, we're going to see web display out there that we're going to connect to the web view that we're going to drag and put on our canvas. So after about the fourth or fifth example, all this stuff, oh yeah, it's the same thing. It is the same thing all over again. So drag some stuff, put it on the canvas, connect the outlets. Here we have a standard property we're going to set to retain, which means we're not going to do any garbage collection on it. The web view is going to be persistent. It's going to stay out there. Double click on your XIB file and open up an interface builder, and then open up the view, drag the web view from the library and place it into the web view. Next, connect the file owner's icon in the web view. So you actually have to put this in the code first before you bring up the interface builder, just to reiterate that point. So out there in the project, I thought I had the project open. I do. If I go into the resource directory, I don't have it. I could just go over here, main window to XIB, and there's resources. But, it should be opening. It is opening. Here it is. Now you can kind of see it's sort of self-identifiable. It says, instead of TextView in here, it says View. It says Web View Controller. Where did this come from? Well, originally I had a blank one. I had a blank screen. Down here on the bottom you could type in web, if you spell it correctly. And you can drag that and stick it over here. And now I have two of them on there. So I only need one. I'm not going to save this change. But this is essentially, actually I could probably go like this and delete it. And now it's gone. So I can add, the other thing too is I can actually resize this. And I can actually add other components if I wanted to also to the same screen. So it's loaded from WebViewController. And WebViewController is part of the main WebViewController connection. And so you can see ViewController is connected to AppDelegate. So we can see that the components here are pre-connected. So I saved you the time of having to actually connect those as well. So now what we're looking at, let me close this interface builder because I don't want to save it. Otherwise my example won't work. Now we're looking at adding the functionality for the WebViewController. In fact, you can do all of this stuff in one application if you want to. You don't have to create many applications for this. But if you wanted to add a WebViewController, wanted to add a web view to your window, you would just do that. You can resize it, make it half of the window or something like that as well. It doesn't have to be the whole window. In this application, it is. So in the view did load, did the web view load, which means we had an internet connection, we were able to load it. On an unload, it's going to give you an error message, obviously. It's going to say, sorry, nothing out there. Create a URL object, and then attach the URL object, which is what we're going to do down here, essentially. Put it on, so I can change this if I wanted to itu.edu. It's supposed to go to Google. Actually, IT may not load because of all the Flash stuff on there. I don't know, but we'll see what happens when we load this. The view did load is the method for the initialization of the view. If it's able to load, it will load. And if it's going to load, we have a URL address object set to itu.edu, and we're going to do our basic memory stuff for it as well. And we're also going to do the request the URL to the NSURL create the object for the URL from that. Add it into the request with, so we have the request sent to request the URL. Display the request, load the request with the request object, which is the URL. And then call super, which is go back to the constructor, or excuse me, go back to the view did load for the constructor of the object that we're inheriting from, and we're inheriting from the ViewController for the particular web view. And then compile and run it, see what happens. So this should hopefully open up the, unless I've made some typos in here, should bring up a web view. So what we're going to get now is a screen, and on the screen we have Google. Well, unknown. Okay, well, I probably didn't save what I just did, actually. This is the application, however, with my unsaved change, because I didn't save it. It doesn't automatically save for you either, so I get in the habit of doing the Android method, which saves for you automatically, and then I run it, make changes, and run it in iPhone. It doesn't save it. So. In fact, the interface builder won't even save it for you either, unless you specifically see. But we can see here we've got the Google in here. In fact, the web view gives us full access, so we can type in itu.edu. And oh, look at that! I think it might actually load. Let's see if it loads actually. Look at that! That's a big icon. Do we have a web version? Well, this is web current location. Ooh, web would like to use your current location. Okay. Let's see if this actually works, because this is interesting. It doesn't work in the Android simulator. It works in the iPhone one. Look at that. That is our current location. Yeah. Perhaps I should build the app on the iPhone instead of the Android. I know it works on the Android just fine. But the, interesting. How do I get back out of here then? Alright, so you can see that the web view works. Actually, the global GPS works. I'm having problems getting my GPS stuff to work, though, in the Android emulator. It works just fine on the Android. But every time I test anything related to Bluetooth, anything related to GPS, anything related to the Internet, anything related to the SD card, whether the SD card is installed or not, emulator bombs out on me one out of 10 times. Or only works 1 out of 10 times or something like that. I don't know. It has a tendency to fail intermittently for no apparent reason. But this emulator, though, is, I'm kind of curious now, this IT website. Hold on, I gotta take another look. I just have to look at something. The format of the website is kind of interesting to me. I wish I hadn't clicked on that map view. So. It appears to be formatted for a mobile device, mobile format. I don't know if this is by accident or if this was on purpose. Does anybody know? This is the first time I've ever seen the website presented this way. Doesn't this look mobile app friendly? Huh. Like the regular one, right? Huh. Watch this. Yeah, let me see. Let me see real quick here. I'm gonna. Yeah, let's see. So I have it on here. Safari. I'm losing people. I think this would be more interesting, actually, to see the differences. It must be something associated with the settings on that web view. Because if this brings it up, this should bring up the regular one. It could have been, no? No, this is the regular web view. Okay, so it's consistent. There's nothing particular about the web view. Say that one more time. What do you mean? Open it up now? Oh, hold on one second. Oh no, what happened? Oh, okay. Let me close this. I see what you're saying. I wasn't listening. Which one is it? Oh, desktop. Oh, look at that. I didn't realize that ITU had a mobile version. It doesn't do this on the iPad, does it? I mean, on the Android, does it? No, just on the iPhone. Are you working in IT? They just did it today? Are you serious? Seriously. I'm the first one looking at it. Oh, you guys are the first people looking at it then. Oh. That's the first time this is what I've normally seen. I've seen the whole thing. They finally did it. Wow. Well, how do you get back? You can't get back. Yeah, look at that. That's nice. Except for, can you get to everything? Academics. So now I have to run it on the Android and see if it comes up. You think it just works on the iPhone this way? It works on Android this way too? Oh, nice. I'm going to add this to my app now. Very nice. All right. Well, I learned something new myself today. ITU has a mobile version. Wow. All righty. It just implemented today? Oh, somebody else did it. Oh. But it just came live today? Wow. Now you've seen it live today. As soon as I get done with this lecture, I'm going to go bring up my Android app. Load the website. I like this. Nice. Because you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip it out. What about the LMS? Did they do it for the LMS? No? Easy way to find out. No, I don't want this. Anyway, I'll do that at a different time when you're not all waiting here for me to finish. Okay, so that was the web view. Interesting, more interesting than I expected. So we'll save that one. I think I will do one more. How's that? Are you guys done with me already? Let's do one more, just to say we did. This one's a really easy one, actually. This one is a combination of everything that we've looked at so far with buttons and text, but this one adds functionality. It is a Fahrenheit to Celsius calculator, essentially, that does a translation between Celsius and it's a temperature app. Let me show you the app so you can know what I'm talking about, and then we'll see the pieces of it, and then I'll conclude with this one for today, and then we'll look at more next time. We might actually conclude sooner because I don't think I have this one loaded. Let's not talk about the temperature app because I don't have it loaded. And instead, let's move on to how about pictures? Showing pictures. We'll do one more. So another thing we do with the usually with mobile apps and things like that is show content. So if you're not going to put up a text view, you could show images. And we saw one on the Android actually that brought up an image from the internet. This one's actually going to take locally stored images and bring them up as pictures, and they're JPEG files essentially, which is what's supporting it. And Snap Show, I see that one in here, which is not a bad example to show. So in the resources directory, I've loaded in, actually I just robbed these images from my Android app. There are different, actually not all of them, some of them are hodgepodge of stuff I had loaded somewhere on my hard drive somewhere. They're just JPEG files. So I loaded a bunch of JPEG files in here, and what the app is going to do is load the files. And it's going to load it into an image view, so we can see what that looks like, which is going to be, it's very trivial. It's very similar to loading up a website. So you can all actually go home and create an app to load up the ITU website automatically. And it'll work actually, so it'll be nice. All right, so in here we have created a project. Lo and behold, we've done again another view-based application. We've added yet again an init, though. This is the only thing we're adding to the header file of the controller. The ViewController class is an initialization for the ID. Just initializes it. The only thing that this application does, and let me show you real quick. It shows an image view with a bunch of pictures in it, and allows the user to flip between the pictures. That's what this does. So let's say you have a library of, here it is here. I'll make it smaller so you can see it. So if that's the first one, that's the second one, that's the third one, fourth one. There's 5 images that are loaded in here. Got to the end, there's no more. It only goes one way. Actually, the little tweeter guy is the only guy that came out nice. The rest of them are kind of blurry. The resolution is higher on this guy, however, so that's probably why. Do you guys know if this is a copyrighted image, by the way? You know it's copyrighted? I took it off some website for free images, and then somebody else told me it was copyrighted. So I don't know. Anyway, we'll see. I'll have to go look that up. This is what the app does, and so you can possibly imagine what the interface builder is going to show us. It's not going to show us very much. It's going to look very similar to the web view. In fact, if we look at the resource here, here we go. Click and wait. Oh, wrong one. If I click the right one, it is. Main window, here we go. Lo and behold, just like the text view, just like the web view, we have the Snap Show View Controller, which is going to be our view. And our view is going to be holding images. We can actually hold pictures, images, files, PDF stuff like that. Well, if we have the right controller and the right information installed for it. We can show different types of things, but this is primarily involved with images right now. So if we look at the view and we go in fact, this is the other thing to point out. If you go into the library and you type in view, you'll see the view here. This one is an image view, displays a single image. The web view, the map view, the text view. These are the things that we've been looking at today in terms of the GUI components. We also have some more that I'm not going to go over, which is going to be, like the picker view, displaying a spinner wheel, so you can pick stuff out of that. In fact, one of the assignments will have you use a picker wheel, I believe. Scroll view, scroll through some stuff. Mechanism. So there's not really that many. Table view. We saw the table view. That was with the bugs. The scary bugs were loaded in the table view. So it was there. And the view itself is the entire app. It's the entire program. And then this Snap Show View, is from our XIB. Owner. Hello. There we go. And we have our Snap Show AppDelegate. That's our delegate with our view. Here we go. This is what I wanted to show you. The ViewController for Snap Show Delegate that's connected. So we can sort of see how the components are working together. And there's only one component that is on the screen that's controlling it. So if we take a look at the implementation of the code, we see a little bit more stuff because we have to release the memory and stuff. So we have to allocate memory for the pictures, load them up into the view, and then have them scroll from one to the other. So we have a little bit more functionality to implement. We'll make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. We've already actually gone through step number 1, 2, and 3 here. So in the controller, the ViewController class, implement the code below. The code below is going to be the show view to show it. And in the implementation, we're going to create an image view using the image view index. We're going to create an index of these because we have more than one. And the image view index is going to take the image count, how many of them do we have, and it's going to be all of the images that we have loaded in the resource file, resource folder. And we're going to add them manually actually further down the road here with the code. But we're going to take this array of images and load them into the control. Set a few things here in terms of the result is the resulting image view with the pictures inside of it. Opaque is set to yes. User interaction enabled, no. Background color is the background color. There's no background color set on that. Just the background color of the UI color. The content mode, make it scale specific. So make that, and that's why some of those pictures actually looked a little bit fuzzy because they were all the same size in the ViewController, but they were all different resolutions, and some of them were actually icons, and some of them were images. So the icons got stretched out, so they don't look so good. Content mode, auto resize mask. So here, and these are just different things, different parameters. You don't really learn this stuff by hearing me say it. Basically, by experimenting with the different parameters that are associated with the different objects, you can kind of see what the effect is. And it's generally problem solving. So when you find, oh, how come the images are because we auto scaled them, how come they're all the same size, or how do we make them differently? Show the best resolution instead. It's another approach you can take. So the images themselves, in terms of the array, the NS array that we've created of the images, we're going to take and on the self we're going to load the images. So the images themselves, in image retain, which means keep it in memory, and then go through the count for you know, the start of the images to the end of the images till we get to the final count. If the count's larger than 0, then take the image and then add it, so it's going to be added to the view. If the count is larger than 1, then we can do a right image. You know, is it the right image? Self create image 1, and then basically put a label on the images so we know the order of the images. And then on self, which is going to be the image controller, the thing that's going from left to right. Opaque is yes. Background color is going to be the color of the whatever it happens to be. So of the UI color itself, and then set the auto sizing mask to the auto sizing for the window. It's for the width of the window as well. So basically all of the images that we're going to be using here is going to be auto fitted. Return, and then you're going to need to implement the touch function. So the touch function in the controller, in fact, the touch function you may have noticed only went in one direction. So if we got to the end, we could actually implement the touch function to start back at the beginning. So if you remember, I was going to the right and it stopped, and then I had to go to the left. So if the right hit the end, we could make it reset back to the number 1 and keep going to the same direction, which is something that would be desirable for that one. So for the layout for the subview, you know, if in swiping, return, so let it return, let it swipe, and then set the content size to the frame size. We know the number, and you can implement this and, you know, cut and paste this and stick it into the controller and kind of go through the code on your own. We're just basically setting parameters for it, setting the image, putting the image in the frame, setting parameters on the image to set the size in terms of not only in the control but how the image is going to be flipped from one to the other. So when the touch begins, there's an event that occurs, and we're creating a method that's going to be performed on the touch. So touch begins. So the touch is doing nothing more than going through the array that we've saved of the images and presenting the next one. So it takes the other one out of memory, puts the new one in memory, and resets the count to the appropriate image that you're looking at. So anyway, you can kind of, you know, experiment with this, change the functionality around. So you need to add the images to the code itself as well. If you add the images to the code, it's going to go into the ViewController, because the images are part of the view that's being controlled by the functionality, because the ViewController is adding the images to the image viewer. And here you can see we've added, and the images were just numbered, and so allocated the memory for it. Add the image by the image name. The image name, these are JPEG files, and they were stored with the. They were actually stored with the project. There's other ways of doing this where you add the images from a URL. If that were the case, you would create a URL object. You'd go to the URL object, get the image from the URL, and basically copy it, use it, excuse me, and load it up into the image view. So you would essentially transfer it from a web address to the local folder or local access to the GUI item that's controlling it. So, and that's pretty much the end of the application, actually. It's pretty trivial. It's pretty simple, actually. So the focus of the applications today were just getting you to create windows with sorts of views, and they were all view-controlled applications. So when we get done with the view-controlled applications, then we'll move on to some of the other ones, you know, some of the other features and some of the things. But it's a great way of getting started. All of the assignments that you're doing for the course are all view-controlled applications, so you don't have to worry about anything too complicated. And if you haven't started working on the assignments yet, they're all posted. They were kind of posted a bit late. I didn't realize they weren't posted. So, and I went over them last time. I went over all 5 of them, and they were all due on May 1st. And there's tons of examples, and I'm going to post all this stuff out there so you can download it and take a look at it along with the video if you want, a little slower, and see how things are supposed to work if you didn't catch anything, because it's really hard to, you know, listen to the stuff and learn it. So as I was saying before, even if I show it to you, you know, unless you're doing it yourself, so which is the purpose of the applications, the purpose of the assignments, I should say. Questions, comments, or concerns? People are asking me when the final exam is for this course too. It's not even like, isn't it like the midpoint or something? I don't know. The final exam will be the last week in April. I don't have the exact dates or the exact time yet, but if all the assignments are due on May 1st, I'll have the exam on the Monday and the Wednesday before May 1st, so the last week of April. Okay, you guys can all go. Enjoy the rest of your daylight savings.